Yes, good morning and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesangos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a beautiful Monday morning, the 27th of October, that we are coming to you live. Um, it's been a beautiful sort of weekend, depending on where your allegiances align in as far as football is concerned. Otherwise, it could also have passed for a miserable weekend, depending on who you had fancied or you had backed going into the weekend. So, but it's a pleasure to back to once again digest what did transpire in the course of the weekend for us on Football Tribe EUG. Plenty, like I said, plenty of action did happen. From Napoli's classic win over Inter Milan by winning that game by 3 goals to 1, to the El Clasico on Super Sunday that culminated into Real Madrid winning that tie by 2 goals to 1, and then of course, Manchester City and Liverpool sleeping in the Premier League, while Man United continued with their winning ways as well as Arsenal. So there was plenty for us to, take in during the course of the weekend. Exciting stuff from, Napoli's victory. Zombongisa, yes, Zambongisa, uh, Zambo Anguissa or Zombonguisa. I mean, very, very brilliant player. But anyways, before we digest it all, allow me have our audios tested and make sure everything has checked out before we take you further down this path of digesting some of the things that we saw in the weekend. But this morning, our focus is going to be on Liverpool and Manchester United because they were on two opposite sides of the game in terms of uh, the results. One winning, the other faltering, and and things like that. So we'll get to digest that. But yes, the other day when I was speaking about this Napoli game, the name I was looking for was Zambonguisa. I mean, very, very decent guy. I think he so far scored what? About 4 goals in this campaign. Scott McTominay once again on target with Spinazzola providing the assist in that one. Kevin De Bruyne right from the penalty spot, as Hakani Chanaloru, who scored from the penalty spot to get what turned out to be a mere consolation for Napoli. Sorry, for Inter Milan on the evening. That was on Saturday. Then yesterday, like I told you, okay, but before yesterday, still on Saturday, you had Bayern Munich beat up against Borussia Mönchengladbach to, I think, reach the 13th victory of the season. We're talking about a Gladbach side that were down to 10 men in as early as the 19th minute because Castropi was given a straight red card. And from there, Joshua Kimmich, Guerrero, and Carl was scored, by the way, in midweek in their victory against Braga in the UEFA Champions League, alongside Hurricane, were some of the goal scorers on the evening as Bayern Munich once again kept another clean sheet, one that came by 3 goals to 0, with Stoja missing a penalty in that game on the side of Borussia Mönchengladbach. So then we went into Super Sunday, where we had of course, the El Clasico. Beautiful game of football, end-to-end attacking football. Barcelona expectedly dominating possession, but that possession not yielding much because they ended up losing that game by 2 goals to 1. Goal by Kylian Mbappe and Jude Bellingham, while Fermin Lopez scored what turned out to be a mere consolation. For Barcelona, it was a bit of a fast game, good to watch on the top. Like I said, end-to-end kind of football. Real Madrid, even without dominancy on the ball, creating majority of their chances, having more shots on target than Barcelona could afford, and things like that. So they had a very, very wonderful game. And I did say it was a perfect score prediction for us here on the channel. because we said it would end in a 2-1 victory for Real Madrid. Two cancelled goals for the side of Real Madrid. I think one was offside, uh, if not both actually were offside. And then Kylian Mbappe missed a penalty in that one. Wojciech Szczesny in the between the sticks for Barcelona, showing his experience when he served that penalty. And again, the funny thing I always look back to is every time a goalkeeper serves a penalty, we condemn the penalty taker to say that was a poor penalty, and it will never afford the goalkeeper any credit to say that was a brilliant save. But I thought it was a brilliant stop for Wojciech Szczesny to keep sort of Barcelona in the game at that moment when they considered that that penalty. So that means in itself, in as far as the Spanish La Liga is concerned, is that Real Madrid opened a 5 point point. They opened a 5 point gap between them and the second place Barcelona after 10 games played. That means out of the total 30 points that you would have achieved, Real Madrid have 27 because they have won 9 games. They've only lost one. Their loss coming against two their city rivals in Atletico de Madrid. I think that was on match day 8. Was it match day 8 when they lost by 5 goals to 2? So a beautiful game of football there. So Barcelona, like I said, remain in second place with 22 points. Villarreal, right, under their nose at 20 points in third place, while Espanyol, surprisingly, are fourth on the La Liga standings with 18 points, and Atletico de Madrid, who are yet to play and are in action, quite to, I think, should be tonight against Real Betis, who come fifth with 16 points as a sixth place Real Betis in that action. So that's as far as the top six are concerned in as far as the Spanish La Liga go. At 11 p.m. East African time, those two sides will be in action. Real Betis up against Atletico de Madrid. I think, okay, the game does coincide with our live broadcast, but I think we'll be following the events, in part as we do our broadcast tonight, unless provided God grants us the chance of life and of course if and everything else does align. So that was the action from the Spanish La Liga. But back to the Premier League, bit of a surprise, not too many surprises, but some predictions didn't go our way. For example, I had predicted the 1-1 draw for AFC Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, but Bournemouth beat up against Nottingham Forest by 2-0. Again, Andoni Iraola showing how how sort of close to a genius he is when it comes to managing this Bournemouth side. And I mean, if they can manage to keep a hold of Andoni Iraola for the next 3-5 years, performing the way they are performing currently, or at least by measure of last season, I think they'll go on to do big things. Their plans to, I think, revamp their stadium to increase that capacity. He's capable of building Bournemouth into an elite mid-table Premier League team, and possibly have them qualify for European football if they can keep the momentum. And then, but that also will depend on if they can constantly keep a hold of some of their best players, because as we saw over the course of the summer, they lost many of their, very important players, especially that backline. When you talk about Ilya Zabani, who left to join PSG, when you talk about Dean Howson, who left for Real Madrid, Milos Kakes leaving for Liverpool, and then of course the goalkeepers on loan, that was Kepa Arrizabalaga. But when you look at their midfield, that was more or less untampered with, as well as their front line. There were reports linking the likes of Justin Kluivert with the move to Bayer Leverkusen, but he managed to stay. Then Junior Cruyff, in the absence of Evan Nelson, Anton Semenyo, Marcus Tavernier, Alex Scott, and Tyler Adams. They're a well-drilled side, this Bournemouth side. Jody Petrovic in that goal, I thought he's done brilliantly well. Another clean sheet on his team. Marco Senesi, Adrian Trafford, new to the Premier League, but he's getting things done. Alejandro Jimenez at right back there, doing well for Bournemouth and things like that. Nottingham Forest on the other side, did play with a 4-2-3-1 kind of system, but again, it did not pay off for Sean Dyche for his first game in the Premier League. We won't fault him much because it was an away game to Bournemouth. Bournemouth, who are in very, very good momentum, have had a brilliant start to the season. But yeah, again, no surprises in how that team was selected. Elliot Anderson alongside Douglas Luiz, Morgan Gibbs-White ahead of them, Danny Doyle on one side and Callum Hudson-Odoi on the other, Igor Jesus on the other side. Of course, maybe on another day you'd expect Chris Wood to be starting, but could be he was absent through injury. Chris Wood should be the go-to guy for Sean Dyche, having managed him at Burnley. But yeah, 2-0. Marcus Tavernier, the goal scorer, as well as Kroipi, the goal scorers in that Bournemouth victory. Anyways, the other victories were Aston Villa beating up against Manchester City thanks to Matty Cash's brilliant goal, winning that game by 1-0. Wolverhampton Wanderers lost it at the tail end. Burnley left it late, beating them by 3-2, while Tottenham were immaculate against Everton, beating them by 3-0. Mickey van de Ven scoring the brace in that one, as well as Pope Matza to ensure that Tottenham Hotspurs moved back third on the Premier League clock, and meaning Bournemouth are second on the Premier League log. So, I mean, with Sunderland in the mix there, again, two unlikely candidates in those positions, occupying those positions. If you had asked me, again, if we go back to our season predictions, you'll find that I did not predict for Tottenham, Bournemouth, or Sunderland to be anywhere near where they are currently on the Premier League table. Nonetheless, it's a long season. Anything can happen. So let's just wait and see. It's a long season. Anything can happen. So then to the gist of our conversation this morning. The gist of the conversation is going to revolve around Man United and then eventually Liverpool. And I hope you do bear with me as we discuss United, because they've had a brilliant set of results in as far as things are concerned. I mean, they've won 3 games in a row for the first time under Ruben Amorim. They're winning away from home, which is very, very brilliant. You know, you sort of love to see it. When you look at you look at the way they won, I think it's been a very, very beautiful way, and they've been scoring goals as well as conceding them on the other end. I think they will struggle to keep clean sheets if they continue to defend the way they defend, but who cares? For as long as they are winning, I think that will be the most important thing. Rising from what, 15th, 14th place to be 6th present day. In comparison to, let's say, match day, maybe match day 4, by the end of match day 4. So it's been tremendous to watch because they've won 4 of their last 5 league fixtures in as far as this season is concerned, beating Chelsea, beating Sunderland, beating Liverpool, beating Brighton, and then losing to Brentford. In a footnote, Brentford, what a huge surprise. Again, I'm one of those that predicted they would struggle this season. I did anticipate Keith Andrews to struggle with that team, that they will be sort of, caressing relegation places and eventually finish 18th and be relegated. But he surprised, I think, many of us, if not majority, and with very, very good performances, including huge victories against big sides. They've been giant killers so far this season, beating up against Man United, drawing against Chelsea away from home, beating up against Liverpool, as we saw in the weekend, by 3-2. It's just been brilliant to watch. But back to the conversation of Manchester United, I think they've done tremendously well. The question is, how do they keep the momentum? Because they have clicked into gear. It's beautiful to watch, and all you can ask of them is to now keep that momentum going. And one of the ways to keep that momentum is for those players staying fully fit, is for those players avoiding injury, because usually injuries can be disruptive to a team setup. Lenny Yoro, Matthias Delit, Luke Shaw looked brilliant. Of course, in some cases, given that Brighton scored two, you could sort of underlook maybe their performance and say, yeah, not good enough. But again, the Man United's problems when it comes to defending the ball start from midfield. So I do not entirely want to put it on the back line. But knowing Ruben Amorim, do not be surprised if one of those is pulled out and then Harry Maguire is coming back in, because we're talking about Harry Maguire who did not start this game but was a goal scorer against Liverpool, scored the winning goal for Man United. So when it comes to defensive numbers, I think they do have some really, really good numbers. We saw, I think, Aiden Heaven come on in that particular game. In the victory, you have players like Patrick Dogu that we've not talked about in a bit, because Diego Dalot and Amadou Diallo as wing backs have been getting things done. On the right and left, sort of shape. Casemiro has been brilliant in that midfield. Brandon Bomo and Matas Cunha look the sharpest against, Brighton and Hove Albion, and no wonder both scored 3 goals with Bomo picking the brace. So for everything they've done right, Brandon Bomo has been right in the mix of that. He has been integral to that. Matas Cunha in the last 2 games, particularly the win against Liverpool and the win against Brighton, again, right in the mix of it. Like I said, Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes, the captain, always being a mainstay in all that. So part of them, and I said this when I was doing my season predictions again at the start of the season, during which I predicted that Manchester United would finish, I think, 7th. I think I put them 7th on the Premier League log. But and I did say part of the reason I thought they were going to bounce back, one was because of the lack of European football. It's a blessing in disguise, especially for a team in this sort of phase that they are rebuilding. I told you guys, more resting time, more time for Ruben Amorim to review the performances of this team, to correct things here and there, to drill that team into how they want to play. And I think we've seen that for the last 3 or 2 games, predominantly against Liverpool and against Brighton. We saw Man United putting that ball high up the pitch. What are they looking for? Is that their towering striker, Benjamin Sesko or Matthias Cunha or Brandon Mbeumo, heads that ball back into midfield, and then they build it on from there. But while that strategy in itself in the first quarter of an hour did not work, I think Brighton came knowing that that's what they were going to do, and they were doing well to cut it out. But Brighton ended up to be the architects of their own failure in trying to build up from the back, which they do so well oftentimes. But I thought there were so many poor judgments in that build-up, because when you're building from out of the back, even when you have a player that is as confident as Lodri could be, or any other player on the ball, why are you passing them the ball when they're literally tagged down? I mean, the opponent is right breathing under their net, and then you're passing them the ball. That's how on 2 occasions they conceded possession and got beat. United squad, those 2 goals, those 2 quick goals. So you looked at that and said to yourself, what on God's green earth are they thinking? Why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? Because they put themselves at risk. And they got punished for it. But also, speaking of keeping up the momentum, United again have another decent run of fixtures, especially for their month of November, starting on the 1st of November, then 8th November, and then after the November international break. I would want to believe that for a team that is without European football, that is the caliber of Manchester United, all these games are no easy games, but these are winnable games. Like I said yesterday, Manchester United are a team that are capable of beating up against any opponent in the Premier League. And their next 4 games in the Premier League will be up away to Nottingham Forest. That's next weekend. We know that Nottingham Forest, we know they've had a managerial change. Things have not happened for them in the Premier League this season. I thought the victory against FC Porto from the UEFA Europa League would inspire them to at least get a draw against Bournemouth. It was never to be. They got beat 2-0, as we saw earlier on in this podcast. So, again, should be a winnable fixture for Man United. I mean, when you're back from beating Brighton, beating Liverpool, you've beaten Chelsea, I mean, you've beaten Sunderland, who are currently, within the top four. Within the top four. You remember, United scored 2 goals in 10 minutes in that game against Brighton, and those 2 goals by Casemiro and Cunha were because they caught Brighton out of play. But anyways, back to the gist of things. I was telling you that Sunderland are in 4th place, 17th with 17 points, more points than Manchester City. I did not expect Regis to have his team as high as this on the league table. But my point is, if you're capable of beating up against Sunderland, then clearly you're capable of beating up against Nottingham Forest. Remember, Sunderland went away to that stadium and beat them like 2-0. Whereas that always does not mean that a bigger team or a team that is higher up on the table will get, it's a given, it should be a winnable fixture. Tottenham Hotspur's difficult fixture, but I mean, pedigree is on their side. Tottenham, Man United versus Tottenham, it's a fixture that they've won in more times than not. Forget the recent past under Mauricio Pochettino and Jose Mourinho, perhaps under Antonio Conte, and maybe here and there against Ange Postecoglou, including losing against them at the finals of the UEFA Europa League. That this should be a recipe for the perfect revenge for Man United to go and win against Tottenham Hotspur. So then you play at home against Everton. Again, 2 away games, and any home fixture, regardless of who it is against, Man United should be forcing themselves to, win that kind of game. So that will come on Monday Night Football in the aftermath of the international break. Then after that, they will play away to Selhurst Park against Crystal Palace. Good morning, Pedri, on this very sad day. I hope you're recovering well from that Barcelona defeat. Yeah. But it's good to have you back. I did miss you last evening because you had promised to be a part of the discussion. I thought I wanted you to particularly give us your insights or what you made of Barcelona's performance, what transpired in the aftermath of the game. We saw the scuffles that that did happen, the verbal exchanges between players like Vinicius Junior and his counterparts from the Barcelona side on the other end. It was a bit of a heated moment in that regard. But I mean, if the El Clasico does not give you that, then what fixture will? So not that I was surprised, but I give us a snapshot. What did you make of what happened on the pitch, and also what happened at the blow of the final whistle? What did you make of all that? As a Barcelona fan, are you concerned? Do you think the performance was worthy of defeat, or they deserved more than they got from that game? Give us your insights, Pedri. So, anyways, back to Man United. So then the final game, like I said, will be away to Crystal Palace. Again, Crystal Palace, very, very difficult opponent, whether it's away from home, whether it's at home at Selhurst Park. But again, they're a beatable team. Everton have beaten them 2-1. Arsenal beat them by 0-0. Yes, whether you go and beat them thoroughly or narrowly, it will matter less. It will matter if you beat them. So I look at this set of 4 games and I'm thinking United can get 10 points out of a possible 12. They are capable of getting 12 out of 12, but if they were to get 10 out of 12, I mean, that will be brilliant. That will be brilliant. And by the end of by the end of that run of fixtures, we could be having a totally different conversation about Manchester United's position on the Premier League club, because they could be as high as second or even leading at the summit of the table. So if you're just joining us, guys, kindly like the podcast and support what we do. But yeah, Robert Kesakos here on this beautiful Monday morning, 9:30 a.m. Um, we've, we're having a change in time, but let's see what Pedri has to say about the game. Our play was basic. Our play was basically like a tiger with no nails. We had a lot of possession, but couldn't bite. The painful thing is that they gave us the ball for the last 35 minutes and we couldn't do anything. Uh, Pedri's red card was like the nail in on the coffin. I was crying. Completely understood. Now, yeah, I thought Barcelona had control of the ball. They went forward well, but they lacked that final pass, that final touch, was lacking. There was a moment when Jules Kunde makes it to the box. I do not remember who set him up with the ball, and it's just that ball. Unfortunately for him, he couldn't control it well. As he chested it, it went, out of his, possession, and Thibaut Courtois was able to collect. But I thought it was a moment where if it had been maybe under a different player, and I remember saying if it had been Robert Lewandowski, maybe Barcelona get an equalizer in that moment. But of course, it can only be maybes, given that he did not score. But I thought it was a very, very good ball. So every time they came up front, that final pass was sort of lacking. Of course, you have credit Real Madrid for how well they tried to defend. I thought Eder Militao had a very, very brilliant performance in that Real Madrid defense. Pedri getting the red card, of course, that did not help. That did not help one bit. But I thought if Barcelona had been more clinical, if they had been more sharper in front of goal, maybe they would have picked up a result from that game. Anyways, let's leave it at that, but also we'll leave it at that for Man United. Do let me know what you think. Now that they are winning, we are not talking about the system. Somebody was putting that to me. And again, if you have a winning formula, we're never going to criticize it unless we are nitpicking, and which does happen sometimes. But yeah, if you're not winning, we're going to pick on it and say your method is not working, because that's the evidence. We can only judge with the evidence we have. If United are winning, and I also made the argument that it mattered less about the system, but who got deployed in the system and how the system got executed. It's just a system. It's just a set of players are playing different roles on the pitch. You've seen players switch positions to do what suits the game. So at the end of the day, it's about that and less about the system. I hope Ruben Amorim won't be, sort of gloating more about it. But anyways, let's leave it at that. And okay, Pedri comes back to say, says Kunde is such an idiot, such a dumb player. Why would you want to flip? Why would you want to? What would you want to flip control the ball in the box like bro Kunde? You're not Messi. Just head it into the next. Just head it into the net. Kunde played awful. Vinicius cooked him. Worst player is Kunde and Yamal. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, Vinicius Jr., I thought had a good game. He was giving Barcelona a run for their money. He had the pace. He was dribbling past them. Of course, he didn't always get away with it, but most of the times he got away with it. He created, I think, the pre-assist for that second goal by Jude Bellingham when he crosses that ball, I think, to the far post, that he sent it back to the path of Jude Bellingham to score, literally an empty net. You talk about Jules Koundé. I mean, personally, I can't fault him. He did the best he could in that moment. You see, when it's a defender finding himself in that area where they usually do not find themselves, with such a ball, I'm not going to be quick to judge them or to sort of send them to the cleaners just because they fail to, control the ball. You suggest he should have just set the ball into the back of the net, maybe. He should have done that, but it can only stay a maybe. So then you say Lamine Yamal, I think you are unpleased. I mean, I thought Lamine Yamal had an okay game, not the best of his performance, but Real Madrid were putting a lot of energy into cutting out his activity. Every time he got on the ball, you could see he was surrounded by 2, 3 Real Madrid players because they know what he's capable of. They know what he's capable of. So they look to neutralize that threat as soon as they could at the first given opportunity, whether it was clipping him, whether it was fouling him, whether it was taking the ball uh, uh, off of him by bullying him in a way. They did it all because they know if you let him run with the ball, he's going to hurt you. He can't shoot from distance. He's going to play that fine pass that will culminate into a goal and things like that. So, sorry, Real Madrid were very, very alive to, were very, very alive to the Lamine Yamal threat that they managed to neutralize it. You say maybe he's been criticized perhaps for saying just a little too much. I think prior to the El Clasico, but it's the nature of the game. I'm sure all players from the respective camps, there's a way they feel amplified. There's a way they feel energized going into an El Clasico in whatever shape they could come into the game with. So basically, that's how I look at it. Then the other topic I want us to discuss this morning is Liverpool. Too many changes are hurting Liverpool. At least that in part is one of my opinions. But before we get into that, Pedro has something more to say. He says Ferran Torres needs to learn how to score. He plays like a 90-year-old grandma. He's so soft. He's so soft. He's a baby in a 25-year-old's body. That's his views about Ferran Torres. Then the comment above, yes, you said worst player is Kunde and Lamine Yamal. We'll discuss that, and we'll discuss the Ferran Torres comment. Now, for Ferran Torres, again, it's not like Barcelona created so many clear-cut chances that you could fault them for missing out on. Like I said, for me, what I felt was that even though they were dominant on the ball, and even the statistics will show you, they did not have enough attempts on target, on goal, And if you're not taking a good swipes at goal, then your chances of scoring are going to shrink. So because they lack that cutting edge final pass, that cutting edge through ball in the final third, at the end of the day, it hurt them. But I thought overall they had done well. So look at Wojciech Szczesny, the penalty he saves took Barcelona in the game. I thought that was a very, very crucial moment in the game to keep Barcelona in the game. Because if they had gone down 3-1, maybe we would have had a totally different conversation, or maybe the game would have run easily away from Barcelona's hands. Because I thought Kylian Mbappe gave you guys lots of troubles with his runs. Barcelona once again played with a very, very high line. Of course, they set up good offside traps for Real Madrid, which Real Madrid on numerous occasions fell for. But going forward, there's just something lacking. And again, the injuries that Barcelona have do not help. They do not help. Because on another day, when you have when you're not bringing in the likes of Marc Casado to change your fortunes, Ronald Araujo, I know he did it the weekend before last, and Barcelona profited from that, getting that victory. They could have been having more attacking players that are being brought on, but it was not the case. It was not the case. Anyways, okay, to Liverpool now. Liverpool, I thought, again, from the weekend, okay, Firmino also was selfish today, although Firmino was also selfish today, although he scored, but he could have made 2 assists, but he decided to shoot both times and he missed. Okay, because you see, from oftentimes for teams that do not play with that outright striker, all the forwards that play within that team are going to want to shine. We've seen it with PSG when Dembele, Desile Doué, Kivicha Kvaratskhelia, Bradley Bakola, regardless of who is Mayuru, Goncalo Ramos, they all want to shine. So, Fermin Lopez having squad, he just wanted to shine. We're talking about a player who in midweek picked up a hat-trick against Olympiacos. So he just wanted to have his own mark on the game. Of course, you have to play to the interests of the broader team than your selfish desires. That should be the case. But what players are innately selfish. They want to take those chances by themselves and score and be the guy that impacts the game. They be the guy that changes the fortunes of their team. And could he have done better? Obviously, he could have done better. But he thought, I can have a go at it. Let me try. So look at it in that way. Look at it in that way, Pedri. Because that's how I for one saw it. So yeah, just let me know. But I think Barcelona can dust themselves off and move on. Of course, the 5 points gap seems big, but it's one that it's one. It's not all gone in terms of doomsday. That it's to be a gap to catch up on. They'll have it all to do once again. Come over the weekend. Real Madrid have a very difficult home against Valencia. Then Barcelona will be in action, I think, on Sunday, the 2nd of November. There will be against Elche. We lacked a big player personality we had in the big personality player. Old you had in the old Lamine Yamal and Rafinha. Of course, the absence of Rafinha, I thought, is hurt Barcelona in a way. If you've seen the way they played, while you may not agree, I know a while back you were sort of taking Robert Lewandowski to the cleaners, but I thought he's a huge miss for Barcelona. When you have him as that point man, I said in that moment where it's Jules Koundé, if it had been Robert Lewandowski, we would be discussing a different result by now. So yeah, that big personality, somebody that takes the entire responsibility of the team was lacking, and that's what Rafinha has given you, not just this season, but also last season. I agree with you. If we had Lewandowski, would have scored twice. Yeah. So sometimes the striker gives you that cutting edge. Can decide small moments in a game or define margins. They can help define that. At least that we can agree on. So we've also seen it with PSG, and the reason as to why I continuously draw comparisons with PSG is because they are one of the best teams in Europe present day. And while they play with a fluid front three, sometimes when things are not working, they call on Goncalo Ramos, who is an outright striker, to come and get the job done, and he does get things done. Seni Mayu is the other that they tend to call upon to get things done. So you say Koundé and Ferran Torres misses, those misses. You could say that maybe at least Lewandowski converts one of those or both of them. And you see, when goals go in, is crucial to the the psychology of how the other players respond. You say, are you sure Ferran Torres isn't under 16 player? He's genuinely a women's football player. I'm sure over the course of the entire season, he will bring you more joy than agony. Yesterday wasn't one of those days, but he will bring you more joy in the future. Look at it positively that he will rise on the occasion on another given day. Excuse me. Yesterday wasn't that day, but maybe on another day it will be. It will be. Okay. Let's discuss Liverpool. For me, officially, Liverpool are a team in crisis, and their next game is not going to be any easy. They've lost 4 of their last 5 Premier League games with 1 victory. That victory last coming against Everton in the Merseyside derby. Since then, they've been beaten up by Crystal Palace, Chelsea, Man United, and Brentford. The most concerning thing of all is that in course they've conceded 9 goals and have scored about 5 goals. Abdul says, what is going on with Liverpool? I would like to a perspective and opinion. Yes, Abdul, good to have you on the channel. Abdul Rahim, kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing if it's your first time here. So again, you come just in time when we are giving our opinion about Liverpool. Yes, 4 losses in a row in the Premier League is unacceptable. Absolutely. I did say this, and I'll say it again. I said this last night for those that were part of the broadcast at 11 p.m. East African time. Losing 1 game is okay for any team in the Premier League, even if you are prime Man City, even if you're prime Liverpool or Man United, is okay. Losing 2 games is again okay, depending on who you lose against. So when Liverpool lost to Crystal Palace and they lost the other game to Chelsea, we sort of looked upon it and said, okay, they've had a bad spell. You know, all teams get their blip. Unfortunately for Liverpool, it's come early in the season. Now, when you lose the 3rd game, a 3rd consecutive game, then we get concerned and we're like, oh, now it's a pattern. It's becoming a pattern. Because if you look at teams like Man City, if you look at Man United, we're talking about teams that have had their own struggles early in this season. I mean, we are only 9 games in. We still have a whole 29 games to play in the campaign, but we had concerns. Now, when you lose the 4th game in a row, then we go from being concerned to being worried. You know? So if you're a Liverpool fan, if you're a Liverpool manager or in the top brass management, you saw the first 2 results, losing to Crystal Palace and Chelsea, and you're like, yeah, bad performances, not our day. Let's find a way to move on from this and see how we carry on. Then you lose to your biggest rival in Manchester United, whereas it's not unexpected to lose against Manchester United. We're talking about a United team that had not beaten up against Liverpool at Anfield since 2016. We're talking about a Liverpool side we're talking about a Man United side that were equally trying to find the mojo, trying to click in their momentum, which they have clicked in by measure of the last 4 results, you know. But so we were concerned at that point. But losing to Brentford, the manner in which they lost that is worrisome. Because for me, I watched that game and they could hardly keep a hold of the ball in that midfield. They could hardly, in different phases of the game, string more than 5 passes between Liverpool players. I know Liverpool, their dominance when it comes to having the ball is not about, you know, knocking it around, passing it for fun, or until babies grow beards or until the sun goes down. It's about quick transitions, but even those were failing. A lot of times those transitions were being cut out, whether it was on the side of Mo Salah, they were being cut out, whether it was on the side of Cody Gakpo, they were all being cut out in that very game. You had what's his name? The guy was given man of the match. That was Coyote. I mean, he just had a brilliant performance. Even when they brought on Riongo Moha, he scored that boy. He's like, yeah, you've come into a man's game. You're only 17, and I'm not going to give you a sniff. You know, he just cut out everything that was to cut out. You know, Pedri says this reminds me of Liverpool team that lost 7-0 to Aston Villa in 2021. Read comment above. I read the comment above. You're saying they lost 7-2. Was it 7-2? I do not think it was 7-2. I think it was 7-1 or 7-0. Coyote's throw-ins are like legendary. Yes. For those of you again that care to remember, you remember a player that was called Laurie Dillon. I used to play for Stoke City that were under the charges of Tony Pulis at the time when they had I think a striker called Kenwan Jones. I forget the other striker that they had, but they were both towering strikers. And I remember them particularly beating up against Arsenal and other big teams because they knew that then they were never going to be dominant with the ball. So what they looked to do was get set pieces and throw-ins are closer or within the final third. And Laurie Dillon with his towel, he would buy that ball and literally throw it into that box like it was a corner kick of some sort. And particularly again that Arsenal game which they beat up against, I think Arsenal by 2-1. It was long throw, and then Kenwan Jones would flick that ball into the back of the net. You know, so his throw-ins quite legendary. I need to buy a brain for Kunde. Should I buy one for Witz also? I do not think Florian Witz is lacking a brain. We know he has the football brain, but again, he had a bad game. You know, so for Liverpool, it's not about one player having a bad game. You struggle to find a Liverpool player that actually had a good game. To say that Liverpool were 2-0 down, they were goal down, of course, in the first 5 minutes, and they defended poorly. Then again, because they were conceding possession in that midfield, that's how Kevin Schade scored the second goal. That's how Kevin Schade scored the second goal. They concede possession in that midfield, and a through ball is played for Kevin Schade. Once, bit of a splitter. Ibrahim Konate gave up on his chest. Maybe the moment Kevin Schade enters that box, I think Ibrahim Konate is like, yeah, the moment I touch him, it's going to be a penalty, possibly a red card, because I'm a last man here. And he just hesitated from running any further, So, and that was in the 45th minute. So they just looked poor. They couldn't hold on to the ball. They conceded possession in the wrong places, but so easily. Yes, they dominated possession overall, but there is nothing that they did right. Whereas Brentford, in their Brentfordness, were doing everything right. You say, I need to buy a brain for Kunde. Okay, I read that comment. But there is another comment that just came through. Kunde, you say Kunde is definitely lacking a brain. Trust me, maybe he's lacking a wife to support him. Igor Thiago seems to be such a good player. Yeah, I do not think Kunde lacks a brain. I understand your disappointment, Pedri. I would use Kunde for that miss against Real Madrid. But on another day, he will give you joy. And it's not too far back that he actually scored a brilliant goal. So then Igor Thiago, again, he gave a lot of trouble to Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahim Konate. And you look back at that penalty moment. Virgil van Dijk thought he had escaped it. But VR decided, yeah, this incident needs to be reviewed. And you could see he made contact with the player right on the line, and it was a penalty. He converted it quite sublimely. And by the way, let's not forget, I think it was Damsgaard, who forced, yes, forced he forced Georgi Mamadashvili into two brilliant serves. So Brentford were doing things right. There was a deviation, of course, from the starting 11 that beat up against Eintracht Frankfurt in the midweek, but some of them were forced. Alexander Isak was absent through injury. Jeremy Frimpong, who started in that game, we know he suffered an injury, so it had to be Conor Bradley that starts. Andy Robertson was withdrawn to start Milos Kakes. So there were changes, to particularly that. But Curtis Jones did not have a game as good as he had had in the Champions League. Vlahovic, same applied for him. Mo Salah struggled through the game, even though he eventually found a way to score. He did struggle. They were closing him down well. Hugo Ekitike, he was firing blanks. He was firing blanks on the day. So now, I want to believe that Liverpool are struggling with one too many changes. Last season, what Arne Slot did were the basics, inheriting a Jurgen Klopp squad that had challenged for the Premier League title without success, ending up finishing third, I think with about 81 or 82 points in the previous campaign. He made them better, did the basics well, had a solid midfield, Ryan Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, and they got the job done, won the Premier League title, were the best team in the Premier League by far last season. Suddenly, rarely do you find a reigning champion making as many changes as Liverpool have had to make because of the players they lost, but also because Arne Slot is now sort of shedding his skin or transforming into the original Arne Slot. Because, like I said, in his first season, he didn't change too many things. Now you have Milos Kakes. He's not new to the Premier League, but new to this team. You have Vlahovic, new to this team. You have Hugo Ekitike, new to this team. Alexander Isak is new to this team. Jeremy Frimpong is new to this team. Georgi Mamadashvili is new to this team. That's 6 players. While Curtis Jones is not new to this team, making him your go-to starter could pass for a new player as well. So at the end of the day, but even without mentioning Curtis Jones, that's one too many changes. How often do you see a reigning champion make as many changes? They almost went from winning the Premier League title to being a team in transition. They went from winning a Premier League title to be a team in transition. They are like, it's like Manchester City at the moment. Because we all acknowledge that Manchester City are a team in transition. They are rebuilding. They've acknowledged that, yeah, we need to get rid of the old guard, and the likes of KDB, we know Kyle Walker, all those have since left the club. They know that sooner or later Mateo Kovacic will be, signing out. Rodri continues to struggle with injuries. They know Bernardo Silva, sooner rather than later is going to have to move on. Ilkay Gundogan moved on. The goalkeeper Ederson Morales moved on, and things like that. So there's been one too many changes for Manchester City, and we do acknowledge it's a team in transition. Of course, the transition happening in different phases. Deep phases in the sense of Omar Mamush, who's been out through injury. You have Ryan Cherki, Ryan Ashnory, but also sometimes you could blame some of their shortcomings on the manager, because sometimes I feel he overthinks the game and things like that. But what cannot be denied is that they are a team in transition. Chelsea, in their Chelseaness, are still a team in transition, because forget not that this is only Enzo Maresca's second season, you know. So I also look at them as to be a team still in transition. But Liverpool went straight from being reigning champions to being a team in that. Whereas for Manchester City, they knew after winning that 2024 league title, they tried to carry on with the same squad and finished 74th. For those of you that remember, their rebuild started in January 2025 when they brought in Kushanov, Omar Mamouche, Victor Reis, who was the other player? Nico Gonzalez, those 4 players. Then they came to the summer and added players like Ryan Chetty, Ryan Achnori, Tijan Reenders, the goalkeeper from Chelsea. Of course, they brought in 2 brilliant goalkeepers in Gyogi, what's his name? Oh, Jesus Christ. His name is eluding me. And the Manchester City goalkeeper, Gianluigi Donnarumma. And then they also brought in the goalkeeper from Burnley. That's James Trafford, you know. So essentially, that's about what? More than 10 signings, or about 10 signings between January and the summer. And all of them have been brought to almost be starters, or at least compete for those starting places. So in a nutshell, we can agree that they're a team in transition, but you can see that their transition took acknowledging that, yeah, we are falling off the pace here. So Liverpool, on the other side, some departures were forced, like Trent Alexander-Arnold didn't want to stay. It was the decision to let go of Luis Diaz. I thought they needed to replace him. They lost Diego Jota. May his soul rest in peace. Very unfortunate. And also, speaking of factors, we cannot ignore the fact of Liverpool being a grieving team. They could walk onto that turf, all looking fine, all looking okay, but it just never goes away that they just lost a player that was part of their squad. They are a team in grief. You see, losing somebody is like that something that you can in a moment forget, but it can all come back flashing out. So whereas we cannot rely it as the justification for why they are losing games, it is a factor. But for me, one too many changes is a factor. So there's no chemistry between Mo Salah and Ekitike. There's no chemistry between Florian Wirtz and Cody Gakpo, or Salah or Ekitike. It's just not there. There's no chemistry between Milos Kerkez and Gakpo. Neither is it there between Salah and Jeremy Frimpong or Conor Bradley. And all that was integral to how they've been playing, or how they did play last season. So those many changes are some of the reasons as to why I believe that Liverpool are struggling, and they are a team in crisis. So those many changes are hurting them. Look at Alexander Isak carrying on his shoulders the weight of that enormous transfer fee, £125 million. He's yet to click in place. You look at Florian Wirtz, like I said, we all can agree he has the football brain, carrying £116 million as weight of a transfer fee on his shoulders, coming into a new league. And I remember reading this comment, particularly on X, in the aftermath of Liverpool's victory against Frankfurt, and somebody was saying, somebody tell Florian Wirtz we do not count that goal contribution from that we do not count that goal contribution from from Florian Wirtz because it was away in Germany. And I'm thinking, why? In other words, the argument was they were trying to make was that, yeah, Florian Wirtz is already playing in familiar territory. That's where he played last season, so it's only expected that things work out well for him. But it's not that simple. Also, but because he returned to the Premier League and still could not contribute something, you cannot disqualify the other school of argument. You cannot disqualify the other school of argument. But Liverpool being a reigning champion and quickly running into transition, because I think Arne Slot asked for all he could ask for because he wanted to transit into himself, into his actual self as a manager. And unfortunately, that is yet to work out. But also injuries have not helped. In between there, you have Ryan Gravel, that was very, very significant to all the things that they did last season, missing out in action through injury. So we cannot sort of wish that one away. We cannot say that it doesn't matter, because it does matter. It does matter. But anyways, do let me know what your thoughts are on Liverpool as a team where you see, like I said, next game going to be very, very difficult. They'll be playing a team with whom they are level on points, 15. The game will be at Anfield, but it's going to be another difficult game against Aston Villa. We're talking about an Aston Villa side that just beat up against Manchester City. We're talking about an Aston Villa side that is on form in as far as the Premier League is concerned. I think they've not lost in the last 6, 2 draws and 4 straight victories. You talk about Unai Emery turning things around. At some point, they were second from bottom this season, but they've done things right. So for me, Liverpool, they need to self-correct as soon as possible. And should they lose another game, yeah, it will look bad. But let's look at their responsibilities in as far as November is concerned. Because October, in as far as the league is concerned, is cold. Like I said, the next game will be against Aston Villa at Anfield. After that, they will travel to Manchester City before the international break. And after the international break, they'll be at home against Nottingham Forest and away to West Ham. Now, you would argue that those games against Nottingham Forest and West Ham should be easily winnable fixtures for Liverpool. But let's not forget, Nottingham Forest is a team that beat up against Liverpool last season at Anfield by 1-0. Callum Hudson-Odoi. West Ham, they look somebody. Anybody beats West Ham. But could things have changed by that time? But before all that happens, before the international break, and I think if there's any manager that is praying really, really hard that the international break does come around the corner, it should be Arne Slot. He needs to take a breather. And that November international break can't come any sooner. On the other side, you have managers like Ruben Amorim that want to keep their momentum. They would rather the international break doesn't happen. Maybe Mikel Arteta falls under the same shade, Maybe Unai Emery falls under the same shade. So they're going to have very, very difficult games. And on that weekend, when they play Manchester City, I think Arsenal will be playing away to Sunderland. And this is what I've said. If Arsenal can keep up winning their games, by the time we go for the November international break, there could be 10 points or 9 points ahead of the likes of Liverpool. And as far as the grand scheme of things goes, in terms of pursuing that title, then it won't look pretty. But that's what they have to go through in the month of November. If they lose those 2 games against Aston Villa and against Manchester City, I think an emergency meeting will be summoned at Liverpool and conversations will be had. We've started hearing speculation and rumors that, Liverpool wouldn't hesitate Anna Slot's job is not on the line, but they wouldn't hesitate in making a managerial change midway the season it necessitates if it necessitates that. Because the last thing Liverpool would want to find themselves in is be a reigning champion and then have the kind of performance that Tottenham or Manchester United had in the previous campaign, as far as the Premier League is concerned. And Jurgen Klopp, not so far back, while appearing on the CEO diaries of a CEO, he said, whereas he doesn't miss the management, he did say, yeah, he will never coach any other team in the Premier League other than Liverpool. And in other words, he said he would be open to a return if conversations were to be had, if he was called back. He doesn't miss it. He loves his job with the Red Bull group. But if it means coming in to save Liverpool when things are bad, he will do it. And I'm not saying he's going to come back, but I'm just simply saying that if Arne Slot loses the next two fixtures in the Premier League to make it 6 consecutive defeats, then a sigh will be taken, not a sigh of relief, but to say, Chief, come to the table. And I'm sure he's under a lot of pressure. And I did say this, again, prior to the start of this season. When I was making my season predictions, when I was predicting that Arsenal would win the Premier League title, and I predicted Liverpool would finish second. Of course, at the moment, it doesn't look likely. But my point was, one of my reasons was that Arne Slot is going to be under a lot of pressure. Why? He won with the kind of squad that he inherited last season, did not have the pressure. There were zero expectations of him because we are all, maybe not all, but many of us were in doubt whether he could fill the shoes of Jurgen Klopp. Then he came and did wonders. He filled those shoes and even better, won them the Premier League title. Now, his squad has been improved. So the expectations are going to go higher. The demands are going to go higher. You did wonders last season. Do even better this season because we have given you the equipment to perform. We bought 2 of the most expensive players. The most expensive player in the Premier League, and then we've broken our transfer record twice to get players in for you, in Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak. We've given you a brilliant left back, a 21-year-old Hungarian left back in Milos Kakes. We've given you one of Europe's elite right backs in Jeremy Frimpong in terms of going forward. We've given you the best attacking midfielder there was in Europe from last season in Florian Wirtz. We've given you a good goalkeeper in Georgi Mamadashvili. We've given you a Giovanni Leoni. We've given you another brilliant prospect of a young striker in Hugo Ekitike, who did tremendously well last season in the German Bundesliga, scoring 15 goals and providing 8 assists. So, here are the tools. Go to work. Go to the kitchen. Cook. Well, there's too much smoke coming out of the kitchen, and the food is burning. How soon can Arne Slot put out the smoke? Only time will tell. But that time is just around the corner. Because, like I said, next weekend, on Saturday, they will be up against Aston Villa. And the weekend subsequent to that, they will be up against Manchester City. Bear in mind that after playing against Aston Villa, they will have a game in the UEFA Champions League. But before we get to Aston Villa, they have a date against Crystal Palace on Wednesday in the 4th round of the EFL Cup. Another difficult game coming their way. But can they overcome it all? Do let me know what your thoughts are. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure doing this with you. Thank you so much, Pedri. Thank you so much, Abdul Rahim, for being part of today's podcast. Thank you guys for dedicating the time to be with me this beautiful Monday morning. Thank you for your insights, for your thoughts, for expounding on our debate. Your submissions are very, very critical and integral to what we do here in terms of improving on the quality of our debate and our discussion as I share my opinions, as I share my analysis into these different aspects of the game. So I take a lot of pride and pleasure in having you around during these broadcasts. So with that said, um, allow me wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Have a blessed Monday and a wonderful new week. And I'll see you guys tonight. I will be here to discuss more about football, depending on what's to come. Bye bye for now. I'll see you guys next time.